Jenny Nicholl was 19 years old when she left her family home in Richmond, North Yorkshire on the evening of June 30th, 2005. She told her mother Anne she would be spending the night away and wouldn't return until the following day. She took camping gear with her. No one knew exactly where she was headed or who she planned to meet. The next morning came and went without word from her. Richmond sits within a landscape of rolling hills and open countryside. Families had lived there for generations, building lives around farming and small businesses. Jenny had grown up in this environment, comfortable with the outdoors and drawn to its quiet spaces. She worked at a local co-op and played bass guitar in a rock band called No Fouling. The band performed at venues around town and had competed in regional music competitions. She was known for her love of Jimi Hendrix and spent weekends camping with friends. Jenny lived on Bolton Avenue with her parents. Anne worked as a cleaner. Her father Brian was a retired Army major. The household was modest and routine. Jenny came and went as young adults do, maintaining her own schedule while keeping loose contact with family. On that Thursday evening, she gathered her things and left. Anne assumed she would hear from her daughter within a day or two. Friday passed. Jenny had made plans to meet a friend for a night out, but never appeared. Calls to her phone went unanswered. By Monday, she had missed her shift at the co-op. Concern deepened into alarm. On July 4th, Anne reported her daughter missing. Later that same day, she found Jenny's white Rover parked in the lot of a local pub. The car was locked and empty. Descriptions circulated through the community. Jenny was slim, 5'6", with green eyes and fair hair that fell to her shoulders. She often wore it pulled back. The last known clothing included blue jeans, black trainers, a sleeveless crop top, and a khaki hooded parka she favored. Posters went up across town. Volunteers searched roads, trails, and wooded areas. Days stretched into a week. Anne and Brian walked through the Sandbeck Plantation, a stretch of woodland near the town. Beneath a scatter of leaves, they discovered cosmetics and a nightdress that belonged to their daughter. The items appeared to have been placed there deliberately, then partially concealed. The discovery gave investigators a location to focus on, but no further trace of Jenny emerged. An incident room opened at Richmond Police Station. 20 officers were assigned. Detective Inspector Pete Martin led the investigation. He appealed directly to Jenny through media outlets, urging her to make contact. The family waited by the phone. Meanwhile, investigators canvassed pubs and social spaces Jenny frequented, speaking to regulars and staff. The public response was strong. Tips came in, but none brought clarity. As investigators dug deeper into Jenny's life, a relationship came to light. She had been involved with David Hodgson, a man in his mid-40s married with 2 daughters. Jenny had attended school with his children. The connection between them had begun years earlier when she was just 14. David initially denied any sexual involvement, then admitted to 5 encounters, claiming all occurred after Jenny turned 16. He maintained that the relationship was consensual and insignificant. David and his brother Robert were familiar with the surrounding woodlands. They had constructed makeshift shelters and hides in the forest, places used for drinking and playing cards. David insisted he had never brought Jenny to these locations. Forensic evidence told a different story. DNA analysis confirmed sexual contact between David and Jenny in 2 separate hides. 9 days after her disappearance, David was brought in for questioning. He denied an ongoing relationship. Investigators remained doubtful. On July 11th, a text message arrived on the phone of Jenny's friend. The message claimed Jenny was fine, living in Scotland with a boyfriend, and asked the friend to relay information to her parents. It referenced specific details about her car and personal matters. That same day, another message reached a different friend, mentioning a recent camping trip and insisting everything was okay. On July 14th, a message was sent to Brian. It was confrontational, expressing anger toward family members and claiming independence. The tone was defensive and abrasive. These messages came from locations near Carlisle and the Scottish borders. They contained information that only someone close to Jenny would know. Mechanical issues with her car, names of specific friends, private frustrations. For a brief moment, the messages offered a fragile hope that she was alive and simply choosing to stay away. and traveled to the areas where the messages originated. Searching for any sign of her daughter, she found nothing. Jenny's phone went silent after those transmissions and was never located. Investigators examined the messages closely. While they included personal details, the language felt off. Jenny's usual texting patterns did not match the structure and phrasing in these communications. Linguists were brought in to analyze the content. Small inconsistencies emerged. Spelling errors that Jenny typically avoided. Word choices that differed from her style. The spacing and punctuation did not align. Detectives also looked at patterns in Jenny's life leading up to her disappearance. There were no large cash withdrawals, no travel bookings, no arrangements with friends for a place to stay. She had prepaid for a series of tanning sessions and used only 2. Her behavior showed no indication of planning to leave. The messages, investigators concluded, were likely sent by someone attempting to create the illusion that Jenny had left voluntarily. Attention returned to David Hodgson. On the day Jenny disappeared, David had also left his home, telling his family he was going camping. He returned the following morning. During the days when the messages were sent from Carlisle and the Scottish borders, David had rented a car. He could not account for his movements during that time. The vehicle showed hundreds of unexplained miles. Further investigation revealed that Jenny had also grown close to Robert, David's brother. The two had gone camping together in the weeks before she vanished. Robert tried reaching Jenny multiple times after that trip, but received no response. He later led police to the campsite. Nothing was found there. Forensic linguists compared the messages sent after Jenny's disappearance with samples of David's writing. Certain patterns stood out: the misspelling of specific words, the omission of apostrophes, unusual word choices that appeared in both sets of messages. While the analysis could not definitively prove David wrote the texts, it established he was among a small group of individuals whose writing style matched the messages. Investigators theorized that Jenny had been killed during a camping trip, possibly following an argument. Her body had been hidden somewhere in the surrounding woodlands. The messages were sent afterward to suggest she was alive and had chosen to disappear. David's behavior raised additional concerns. He was known to be possessive and jealous. Friends recalled instances where he became visibly angry if Jenny spoke to other men. Tension had grown between him and Robert after Robert spent time with Jenny. David's resentment was apparent. October 6th marked Jenny's 20th birthday. Anne hung a large banner outside the co-op where her daughter had worked. CCTV footage from the days before Jenny disappeared was released. On November 3rd, the case was formally reclassified. This was no longer a missing person investigation, it was a murder inquiry. That same day, David gave an interview to a local newspaper. He claimed he had been receiving death threats since his relationship with Jenny became public. He stated that Jenny had told him she planned to leave and that he had lent her money. Anne and Brian appeared on a televised crime program appealing for information. Detective Inspector Martin explained that new evidence pointed to a local solution. He believed the text messages were fabricated by someone close to Jenny, likely a boyfriend, to create a false trail. He stated his belief that Jenny was no longer alive. During the investigation, authorities examined Brian's personal computer for any information that might relate to Jenny's disappearance. The search uncovered thousands of images of child sexual abuse. Brian was charged and later admitted to 16 offenses. He received a community rehabilitation order. Police confirmed the material had no connection to Jenny's case, but the revelation added another layer of pain for the family. On January 17, 2006, David and Robert were arrested on suspicion of murder. Robert was released without charge. David was released on bail. In March, a team of retired senior officers was brought in to review the investigation. Searches of the countryside continued. On March 27th, searchers in the Sandbeck Plantation found Jenny's teddy bear and portable stereo. The items were located in a wooded area off Longwood Bank. Forensic testing was ordered. The find was significant because it placed Jenny in that area after she left home. The plantation was dense and sprawling. More than 150 acres were combed by police and military personnel. Caves, shafts, and moorland were examined. Still, no sign of Jenny. 1 year after her disappearance, a memorial service was held at a local church. 100 people attended. Jenny's aunt read a message from Anne and Brian describing their daughter as unique and irreplaceable. The family held on to hope, even as that hope dimmed. Forensic linguistics became central to the case. Professor Malcolm Coulthard, an expert in the field, analyzed more than 100 messages sent by David, 11 sent by Jenny, and the 3 messages sent after she disappeared. He identified distinct patterns. Jenny used the number 2 as a replacement for the word to without leaving a space. The later messages included a space. Jenny wrote contractions like I'm, while the messages used I am. Jenny spelled phone with an F. The messages spelled it correctly. The professor concluded it was highly unlikely Jenny sent those messages. David's messages shared characteristics with the text sent after Jenny vanished. He misspelled off with a single F. He used might spelled as might. He omitted apostrophes and contractions. The similarities were striking. While the analysis could not confirm David as the sender, it placed him within a narrow group of possible authors. In May 2007, David Hodgson was charged with Jenny's murder. The decision was unusual given that her body had not been recovered. The Crown Prosecution Service determined there was sufficient evidence to proceed. The trial lasted 5 weeks. Jenny's private life was examined in detail. Her parents were questioned about their family dynamics. The defense suggested Jenny had run away to escape her father. The judge later described this claim as baseless. Prosecutor James Gose argued that David had killed Jenny and disposed of her body with the intent that it would never be found. The text messages, the rental car. David Hodgson was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 18 years. He displayed no emotion. The judge noted that David's refusal to reveal the location of Jenny's body had prolonged the suffering of her family. He remarked that David had shown no regret or remorse. Anne and Brian later spoke publicly about their experience in court. They supported changes to the justice system to protect families of victims from re-traumatization during trials. They described the process as a character assassination that reduced witnesses to tears. David Hodgson never disclosed what happened to Jenny or where her remains are located. His case later went before the parole board. Helens law, enacted in January 2021, allows parole boards to consider a killer's refusal to disclose the location of a victim's body when deciding on release. The law was cited in denying David's parole. He launched several appeals. All were unsuccessful. He remains in prison. Retired Assistant Chief Constable Sue Cross later reflected on the case, expressing regret that Jenny was never found. She spoke of moments when a song on the radio would bring the case back to mind, stirring questions about whether any opportunity to locate Jenny had been missed. For Anne, the absence of her daughter's remains created an unbearable void. She spoke of the agony of not knowing what had been done with Jenny's body, describing it as though her daughter had been discarded as if she did not matter. Jenny mattered. She had a future ahead of her, dreams of a career in photography, friendships built on shared passions, and a love for the open countryside she called home. That future was stolen from her at 19 years old.